Hello, friends. It's Fuzz Martin. This is 15 Minutes with Fuzz. I'm happy to be with you here in the studio today. I've been in my car so much this summer that I enjoy these few minutes that we get to spend together, though I guess there's a good likelihood that you're listening to me in your car right now, but I'm in the studio. We've had a good summer. We drove out to South Dakota earlier this summer to see Mount Rushmore and Custer State Park and a bunch of other things. We saw the Dignity statue, the Jolly Green Giant statue, Wall Drug, the Corn Castle place, a whole bunch of places. Last week, I went to Milwaukee Irish Fest, then to Green Bay to drop off our daughter and our dog. Then we went to a wedding an hour west of Minneapolis, and then we went to Door County to pick up our daughter and our dog again, and then we drove home, all within a weekend, well, from a Thursday through Sunday. But we're back now, and I'm here with you. Thank you for listening to 15 Minutes with Fuzz. This week, Jay Tamez joins me to talk all about the West Bend Music Academy. The West Bend Music Academy is very actively involved in our community. They've taught many people, young and old, how to channel their love of music, and they have cool programs like the Summer Rock Band program. Rockin' ain't no walk in the park, lady. School of Rock reference. With that, here are 15 minutes on the West Bend Music Academy with Jay Tamez on 15 Minutes with Fuzz. Jay, thank you for coming in the studio today. Can you first tell us about West Bend Music Academy? It's part school and part store, right? So you can give us a kind of background of what it is.
Yeah, so it's of course, the West Bend Music Academy because it is an academy for learning how to play instruments, and that's where we started. So it was really more of a learning environment, institution. But then we, of course, started carrying instruments and other things, accessories. So that's kind of, it's blended.
It's a blended. So yeah. So when you're downtown West Bend, you can see that you've got there's guitars and all this cool stuff in the windows, but also a place to learn. Right?
Well, yeah, we thought about changing the name, but we were already too far into the game when we started really expanding into the sales. Music industry retail they call it, but yeah, I think people get it when they come into the store because they see that we have instruments for sale.
So speaking of being a little too far into the game, can you tell us how West Bend Music Academy got started? Where did the idea come from? How did it all come to be?
Yeah, okay, so it was founded in 2000, and it was John and Magdalena. Forgive me, I can't remember their last name now. But anyways, they founded this store, this academy. And at the time, I was working at GW Music, which was here in town.
Okay.
And later on, that was sold to White House of Music.
Sure.
And we really didn't think it was any sort of threat to our business. It really didn't seem like it was a threat. So, but I did want to find out what it was about. So I walked in there and introduced myself, and I had a conversation with the owner, John. And it was really interesting how he got into it. It was basically his wife was a teacher and wanted a place for her to teach. So he, formed this company. And of course, he apparently was an entrepreneur and had started other businesses. So he owned a bunch of different businesses. So anyways, I ended up later on, I left music. I decided that I didn't want to be involved in music anymore and thought I was going to change my career. And that didn't work out so good. So I had to fall back in my music career. And the day that I came back to West Bend to, just, I guess, start over, I got a call from this gentleman, and he introduced himself as the new owner of the Music Academy of West Bend, it was called.
Okay.
And he said, he told me every time he talks about music involving anything to do with the music industry, my name kept popping up. So he said he thought it would be a good idea to reach out and talk to me. So he did. He was calling out, and it was really serendipitous because it was the day that I came back to West Bend.
Yeah.
I had moved away and tried to make it in other industries. And anyway, so it was the day I came back. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
It was 2006.
Okay.
And I said, okay, great. So he bought this store from John and Magdalena. And he said, I don't know how we can start this, whatever work relationship, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I did everything in music industry retail. He wasn't really heavy in music industry retail at the time. He said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we start with teaching? You were a teacher. And I said, oh, that sounds great. So I started teaching. And that year I met my current business partner, Rich Ryszewski, who also started teaching there that same year.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, long story short, the business went through some challenges and ended up going bankrupt.
Okay.
And the owner had completely left the business in 2013. Well, Rich, of course, him and I had become friends, and we both had a huge amount of personal money invested in the Music Academy of West Bend. And we were already committed to the teachers, just the culture, everything about it. And so Rich said, Jay, I think I'm going to take over the sole proprietorship of the Music Academy. And I actually tried to talk him out of it because it's not an easy industry.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very challenging. I've been working in music stores, a long time, and I knew how tough it was. Margins are tight.
Sure.
Yeah. He didn't want to listen to me. He just was headstrong. He says, nope, I made up my mind. I said, okay, well, then if there's nothing I can do to dissuade you, then I fully support you, and I will do everything in my power to make sure you succeed.
And here you are today. So 11 years ago then?
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah.
Oh.
And so what happened was I was partnered with the business earlier, but I didn't go official until I think it was 2016 when we finally decided that we actually, we were able to turn this business around. And then we realized that we had to start doing things, by the book. And so we decided to create an official partnership LLC. And then we ended up relocating to the downtown West Bend, and things just took off from there.
Sure. And so it's a great location, right downtown West Bend. And what's the cross street there?
That's Hickory.
Hickory. Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you've been downtown at all, you've seen it. It's right there on the corner. So
yeah,
you offer a lot, obviously, besides the retail side of that, from lessons and programs and such. What kind of lessons can people take? What kind of instruments and such and training can people get at West Bend Music Academy?
Sure. Probably the most popular ones, of course, are the big 4 or 3. You have the guitar. That's one of the most popular. We have 4 or 5 guitar instructors. I lose track now. There's so many. And then piano is also one of the most popular ones. We have, I think, 5 or 6 piano instructors. And so then you have bass guitar.
Okay.
You have drums. We have, I think, 2 drum instructors. And we have some of our other instructors are multi-instrumentalists. So they're able to actually fill in if we have an over demand in a certain instrument, then they can cross over and teach that instrument. But then we have violin, then we have other types. Let me think once. There's a couple of them that are just, I guess, band instruments, a couple of band instruments that I can't remember the exact ones. Flute, I know. I think clarinet.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of the band instruments some of the teachers teach as well.
Sure.
But then we also have these auxiliary programs that wouldn't be defined as just one instrument, like the rock band program, for instance.
Yeah,
which
I saw
is
that. Yeah.
happening right now. And so what we do, it's kind of like the School of Rock, but we started out actually before the School of Rock.
All right.
We started way before. But we basically, it's called Summer Rock Band, and we take open enrollment to our student base. And then we opened it up to the general public, though. So you don't have to attend the Music Academy to be in the Summer Rock Band program.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have about 5 groups that we put together, right? And they go on tour and play all these, prominent locations. So it's really cool. They play Summerfest they play the Bend Theater. That's our end of year performance.
Sure.
We do Music on Main.
Awesome. And is it all like kids, like high school
It
age,
is.
or what's?
Well, actually, we start them out probably in the middle school.
Okay.
Yeah. So we always have the entry groups that are younger. So we have the middle school groups, and then we have the high school groups. And then by the time they hit sort of that 18, 19, then we got to give them the boot.
Sure.
But it's not like we are forcing them out. We train these bands to become professional bands. So if you look at some of the bands locally, like Fallback, I know they play Music on Main. I think it's this Thursday. Yeah, tomorrow. They're a Music Academy band. We created that band.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so
they were part of that rock band or program.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And there's a lot of other prominent bands that are performing professionally that we created. So it's really cool how it starts. The younger bands, let's say the middle school bands start out, we put them together. Well, then they re-enroll, and that group almost like, because they build a bond, and they get to know each other. So they insist on being enrolled in the same group. Sometimes we have some, because there's too many of one instrument, we have to, create a different group and move them over a little bit.
Sure.
But for the most part, by the time they hit the high school, because they keep re-enrolling, once you participate in the rock band program, you're hooked.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so you guarantee you're coming back next year.
That's
And
awesome.
they keep getting older and older and more experienced, and the band itself starts to become this unit, this band, this bond. And by the time they hit adulthood, they're on their way to start booking shows and performing professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good base background, because otherwise, if you're just starting off with a few people, you got to figure it out on your own.
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yeah. You know how hard that was? I mean, when I was in bands in high school, I mean, you had to learn everything, tripping over yourself, figuring out like, what do I do? How do I, and yeah, if it's all trial by error.
Yeah.
Where in this program, we have, of course, our experienced team, which I mean, we have backgrounds in performance, in recording, in electronics, in, of course, instrument education. There's so many facets that we have. Our team is so high level experienced that we pretty much give them the farm and the training. We mentor them, and they just kind of monkey see, monkey do, and
Sure,
learn
yeah.
all the things that we take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you've had the experience and
Right.
already and have already taken the steps that they haven't had yet. So
That's right.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I also saw that you have a thing called the Technology Enhanced Music Program online, which spells out tempo, which works perfectly.
Yeah.
Can you tell what is that?
So that is an online program. It actually augments our in-lesson environment. So the idea, Tempo was born out of this desire for better education, better music education.
Okay.
So I guess whenever I was teaching music, I always found myself crossing things out in the books. I just thought that they weren't, I don't know, I can't explain it. They weren't innovative enough. After teaching for so many decades, you start to get an idea on what, the feedback loop from students, and you see what works better and what doesn't work. A lot of these books, I don't feel like they kept up with the innovation.
Sure.
So I just found myself crossing things out and writing it in constantly and hearing feedback from the other teachers on the complaints of the current, materials that are available to teachers. So I said, I just got tired of crossing things out and writing it in. I said, maybe I should write my own guitar method.
Okay.
And so that's where that started. In 2011, I started writing my own guitar method. So, and I use the same tools that we were just talking about a little bit ago, like Google Docs.
Yeah.
So all the free available tools to create. I wanted to use, any available tool that was free to anyone to be able to create this method.
Sure.
And that's where it started. And eventually in 2015, it evolved into the lesson environment as we were innovating, the Music Academy. I put in these 50-inch, screen high definition TVs and of course connected to a small form factor computer. And then I attached cameras to them. And then, so it kind of it turned into this learning management system.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we built a website, and then we had it interconnect with that website. And that was sort of where the ideas of Tempo started. And then when we did the build out and we moved to the downtown, we just made all the rooms the same because we were piloting them in the old location, but all the rooms weren't retrofitted.
Sure.
Yeah. But then we finally decided that every room needs to have this because it is such a force multiplier. Yeah. So, yep, that was the beginning of Tempo. And it was funny because I have to credit one of my employees, Sam Rodman. At first it was Technology Enhanced Music Program. And so it came up to Temp.
Yeah, it's online. So there you go.
Yeah, well, Sam's like, it would be really cool if we had something that sounded more music oriented.
Yeah,
like maybe if we could put the word online in there, then to be Tempo. And I'm like, wow, that's brilliant.
And temp sounds like it's temporary. So this is permanent and it's online.
No, it's great.
That's excellent. So you're obviously in music education. You see students come through all the time, young and old, I assume. But mostly young. Why do you believe music education is important for kids, students, other individuals?
Sure.
What makes that important?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I guess through my journey, starting when I was young, I started at the age of 8, and my mom and dad actually were musicians. They met on the stage. So there's a lot of music in the house. And so that influence helped me kind of decide that I was going to have, a career in music. Well, what I come to learn later on was that I had a hunch just from witnessing the effect of music. Because, you ask anyone, hey, do you like music? And most people, they'll look at you like you're weird. Well, of course I like music.
Right, right.
It's almost to be human, right?
Hmm.
So, but I love asking that question. And I've never had a single person in the past 30 years that I've been asking that question say, no, no, I don't like
It's
music.
not for me.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a single one. So I think we take it for granted how profound music is as an influence in our lives.
Hmm.
Well, that's one thing. The effects of music, there's a book called Your Brain on Music. I can't remember the author, but it is such a great read. This neuroscientist was looking at brain scans and noticed these anomalies where all the areas of the brain are firing off at the same time, which doesn't happen in humans. And he was trying to understand why these come about every once in a while, and he wanted to find a link. He found the link was that they were all accomplished musicians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he began research into that direction to study musicians' brains. And what he found out was very profound. And apparently, your brain, when aside from just listening to music, but actually engaging muscle, memory with music, so
Hmm.
actually playing an instrument, you are firing off parts of your brain at the same time and developing areas of your brain that normally are not developed. So really what you're doing is building a super brain.
Sure.
Yeah. And
Sure.
so it's a metamorphosis that occurs. Well, here's the cool part. Once you go through that metamorphosis, your brain never returns to that original state. So it's transformative.
And that's why music education is important.
It is extremely important because imagine a young person
Hmm.
going through this metamorphosis and ending up with, so you're actually making new neural connections when you're learning music.
Hmm.
And I tell parents that when I'm in the group classes and I'm like, they're learning something and they achieve something. And I tell parents now, your kids just grew, their brains just grew.
Yeah.
You know?
And this, I mean, even just taking the classes that I took in high school, or in grade school,
Right.
like I still remember those things and paradiddle, flam, all that
Yes.
stuff
Yes.
that I would never, I don't play an instrument anymore these
Yeah.
days, but you're totally right. You learn those things and they stick with you forever.
Oh, it's like riding a bike.
Mhm.
Someone gives you a drum set and
Yeah.
you're there for 20 minutes. It's going to be like yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So on that, with obviously kids learning, just like learning a language, kids learn, it's easier for kids to learn things. Do you have adults that come in and learn new instruments, guitar, drums, those kind of things?
They do, and it's very exciting when people do because I think a lot of times for a late learner, they think for some reason they didn't learn. It could have been either financial reasons, it could have been time, maybe just lack of interest, but there's this sense that they regretted not doing it,
Hmm.
and so there's this excitement, but yet it's cautious because they're like, you know, they ask sort of, "Do you think I can learn?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, absolutely."
Hmm.
So I think they get very excited that they can now begin this journey, and I do feel like we feel like we shouldn't. We wish we wouldn't have waited so long.
Right, right.
Yeah. But it is very exciting when we do, and we do have a large amount of people that are adults that come in and if you want to call them late learners, but it's never too late.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get a lot of like retired people that are like, hey, I'm finally going to take it now
We
that I'm
do.
not working.
We do. We have one of our students. He's in his, I think, mid to late 80s, and he gets brought in a wheelchair by his caregiver,
Sure.
and we put him there in the room and start doing his guitar lesson, and he performs at the recitals. And
Oh, awesome.
but he loves it. He looks for it's the one thing they say that he looks forward to the most each week.
You're talking about the brain activity and such, and that's super important for aging adults, right? Is that to
Exactly.
keep their minds busy, those different kind
Yes.
of neurological games and things you can
Yes.
play, and I can see where music would absolutely enhance that.
Absolutely. They found now there are correlations and links between learning or playing an instrument and Alzheimer's.
Okay, yeah.
Being able to, I don't know what the word would be, but to, avoid Alzheimer's.
Sure, absolutely. You've had a number of students come through, obviously, in your decade plus here at West Bend Music Academy. Do you have any success stories of people who've gone on to bigger and better things that are, or I guess bigger things as they've graduated and become, professional musicians, or has anybody come through the doors that kind of stands out?
I think I would say on a national level, I'm not really sure, but we do have some local legends
Okay.
that are world famous in West Bend.
Sure.
So I know we have some younger students actually that just won a scholarship. It was the Whammy Cares scholarship.
Oh, sure, yeah.
For recognition in music. And just seeing that some of these younger people are being recognized, for their potential and their passion in music is exciting. We also have, some of the teachers that we have are kind of local legends. We have JJ, who is in a band called Versus Me.
Okay.
And they are unbelievable, man. They're touring. I saw their videos are amazing. Got to look them up.
Awesome.
Top. We're talking world class, platinum grade stuff here.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah.
And then you have Andrew David Weber, who is in American Progress, and of course all Part-Time Problems. All these, local bands, and he's on tour right now as well. So of course he's a legend,
Sure.
locally. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And by the way, Whammy is the Wisconsin Area Music Association. Right?
Music industry. Yep.
Industry.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. We had when I was in radio, we did a lot of stuff with Whammy when they were doing like the Hodag Country Music Festival thing that they had a kind of regional contest that they would feed to.
Yes.
It was great organization and bringing all the people together. You're involved with a lot of community events. In fact, the reason that we're talking today is because I had Buck Blodgett on from Love is Greater Than Hate Project. I know you're working with them at an event at the Shower Center in September. Yes. I've worked with you at the Guitars for Vets at the Bend.
That's right.
But you're involved a lot with the community. What makes that important to you?
Well, I think if we start looking at why we do anything, you have to have a reason for it. And we didn't set out to own a music store because we wanted to be millionaires.
You would have picked something else.
Exactly. It's so we often laugh, Rich and I, like, why are we doing this, man? This is hard work and there's not a lot of money. But I guess the way that we came up with a sort of this quantification that it's not monetary. We call it a calling.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really, when you see, like, for instance, the rock band program, we have these families that are showing up for these events, and we have practices and all, everything involving rock band. Well, they end up getting to know each other, and the families end up becoming friends. So there's community building involved.
Yeah.
And so the joy that comes from being a part of something, I think it's like being a part of a team. Mm-hmm. It's exciting, and you feel like you belong.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, being a part of the community is important to any business, I think. But when you have talents and ability to bring people together like that directly in the community, that's really important.
Yes. Music does that easily, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, music on Main, right? Just all these people come here just to listen to music and
have a good time.
And thereby also supporting local businesses and such.
That's right.
All through music. If somebody wants to get their kids involved with music, or if they themselves want to get started but don't know where to start, what's the best way to jump in and start with music?
Well, you of course can do the thing like on YouTube. I think that's a big gateway for people. We hear a lot of people that come and start lessons with us, and they'll say, well, we kind of start watching some YouTube videos, and they'll get so far and they're like, okay, maybe I need some guidance here. Mm-hmm. So I encourage you to do anything you can. Just, get an instrument first and foremost, or access to an instrument, and then just start engaging with that instrument. If you're a parent, buy instruments or acquire instruments, leave them around the house.
Yeah.
And kids instinctively will walk up and start playing with them. They may not, maybe it might be short term, just to, play around with it and put it back down. But having it present is important.
Sure. We don't see a lot of homes with, just pianos hanging out anymore these days, but that used to be huge in the 80s and 90s, of course.
Yeah.
And probably way back to the 1800s.
Exactly.
So if somebody wants to learn more about lessons at West Bend Music Academy, or getting started, or they're interested in purchasing an instrument, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Of course, you could go onto the website, and that is westbendmusicacademy.com. If you just Google West Bend Music, it will come up.
Sure.
Probably number one. Let's hope.
Yeah. Yes. It came up for me when I searched.
Yeah.
And again, you're located downtown on Main Street in Hickory.
Main Street in Hickory, in the historic downtown.
All right. Very good. Jay, awesome what you guys do for the community and for helping kids fall in love with music, and people of all ages, of course. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Jay Tamez of the West Bend Music Academy for joining me on this week's episode of 15 Minutes with Fuzz. If you ever have an idea for a guest for the show, suggest a guest. Go to fuzzmartin.com/guest. and fill out the form. That is fuzzmartin.com/guest. Or you can email me, fuzz@fuzzmartin.com. That is fuzz@fuzzmartin.com. I love to hear about events, nonprofits, interesting businesses, cool stuff that people want to hear about happening in and around Washington County, Wisconsin. New episodes come out on Tuesdays. Next week, Maria Gutierrez-Garola and Jesse Plummer of Casa Guadalupe will be joining us to discuss Casa Guadalupe's Fiesta Latina, which is going to be 2 days this year, which is super cool. So tune in again next week, right here on 15 Minutes with Fuzz.